They laughed at the tattoo on her neck, not knowing it marked the woman who once saved their commander's life. The words hung in the air like a silent storm. Moments before the world around them shifted forever, it began in the dusty courtyard of Fort Archer, a Marine base known for its discipline and its pride. The recruits stood in formation, tense, sweating under the afternoon sun. Among them was a woman no one seemed to notice at first. Hood up, eyes down, silent, until someone saw the ink peeking from beneath her collar. A black falcon, wings spread wide, a rifle clutched in its talons. They laughed. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love knowing who's listening. The teasing started small, a few whispers, a shove, a snicker. Who wears a sniper tattoo if they've never held a rifle? One of them joked. Another chimed in. Maybe she got it off Pinterest. But the woman said nothing. She just adjusted her hood, the fabric shadowing her face, her hands trembling slightly, not from fear, but from the effort it took to stay calm. And one knew her name. She had arrived 2 weeks earlier as part of a civilian military exchange program, a mysterious new instructor brought in for tactical observation. That's all the official notice had said. No rank, no title, just observer. And in a place where rank meant everything. That was enough to make her invisible or a target. Until that day, the drill sergeant, a broad man named Harris, called for a live simulation, hostage extraction, full field protocol. It was the kind of exercise designed to test instincts, teamwork, and composure under pressure. Split into 2 teams, he barked. One will guard, one will rescue. And as luck would have it, the hooded woman ended up in the rescue team, alongside the men who had been mocking her minutes earlier. When they entered the mock village, the heat was suffocating. Dust clung to their skin, and the air smelled faintly of oil and sweat. The woman stayed at the rear, her movements efficient but quiet, scanning every corner. The others thought she was hesitant. She wasn't. She was counting wind angles, cover points, elevation, old habits. Left building clear, someone shouted. No contact. Then came the sound, a sharp crack in the distance. A blank round, part of the exercise. But the echo carried something else, something too real. The woman's head snapped toward the direction of the sound. Her pulse quickened. The pattern was wrong. That wasn't a blank. That was a real shot. The sergeant's radio flared. Unknown movement outside the range perimeter. Lockdown protocol initiated. The laughter from earlier evaporated. The recruits froze, eyes darting, unsure whether this was part of the drill. It wasn't. The woman reached into her vest. No weapon, no comms, nothing but the faint hum of adrenaline in her veins. She looked at Harris. We need to move your people behind cover. Now. The sergeant hesitated. And who exactly are you to give orders here? She met his eyes, calm and level. The person who taught your commander how to breathe before pulling the trigger. He blinked, stunned, and then she pulled down her hood. The courtyard went still, her face sharp, familiar, a scar tracing from her temple down to her jaw. But it wasn't the scar that made Harris step back. It was the insignia inked on her neck, the falcon in black and gray, identical to the one painted on the SEAL recon wall inside the commander's office. The room around her seemed to shrink, because everyone at Fort Archer knew that symbol. It belonged to Ghost Falcon Unit, a covert sniper team disbanded 5 years ago after a mission in Basra went wrong. And only one woman had walked out alive, Captain Lena Rourke. Get your men down, she ordered. That shot came from 400 meters north, ridgeline. Someone's testing your perimeter. The sergeant didn't argue again. Within seconds, the recruits ducked, forming positions, adrenaline flooding their veins. She grabbed a training rifle from the rack, the kind with a blank chamber, and with 3 swift moves, modified it with a piece of wire from her wrist strap. The mechanism clicked. Now it was lethal. The men stared. Who are you? One whispered. Someone you owe an apology, she said. Without looking back, as they advanced toward the ridge, the silence pressed down like a weight. Every step crunched on gravel. Every breath felt loud enough to give them away. Halfway up, the wind shifted. She stopped, raised her hand. A glint in the grass. A rifle scope. Without thinking, she dropped to one knee, sighted the target, and fired. One clean shot. The echo rolled down the hill. A figure toppled from the ridge. The recruits gasped. When they reached the top, the would-be intruder, a man in dark fatigues, lay unconscious, his weapon beside him. Real, loaded. This wasn't an exercise anymore. The SEAL commander himself arrived minutes later, his convoy kicking up a storm of dust. He stepped out, scanned the scene, and froze. His eyes landed on her. Rourke? She nodded once. It's been a while, Commander. He looked as if he'd seen a ghost. We thought you were gone. I was, she said softly. Until I heard the same people who used to mock my silence were mocking someone else's scars. There was no laughter now, just quiet, the kind that felt heavier than noise. The recruits stood still, eyes wide, realizing who they'd been mocking. Harris, the sergeant, took off his cap. Ma'am, we didn't know. She looked at him, not with anger, but with something harder. That's the point. You never know. Every mark, every tattoo, every scar has a story, one you might not survive if you try to laugh at it. The commander stepped closer, voice breaking slightly. You saved my life on that rooftop in Basra. I never got to thank you. You just did, she said, nodding toward the recruits. Teach them better than this. In the weeks that followed, stories spread across Fort Archer. About the sniper who wore her hood low, the woman who never bragged, the legend who returned not for glory, but for humility. The recruits who once mocked her began to train harder, speak softer, listen more. They stopped measuring worth by what they could see and started asking what they didn't understand. And on the last day of her visit, before leaving, Lena carved a small mark into the training wall, the falcon again, wings outstretched. Below it, she wrote just 2 words, earn respect. The next morning, when the commander walked by, he stopped, smiled faintly, and whispered, Ghost Falcon flies again. And for the first time in years, the base felt alive with purpose, because respect isn't demanded, it's earned. And it echoes long after the laughter fades, and sometimes, the quietest person in the room carries the loudest story of all. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And before you go, tell me in the comments, what's your story mark? Everyone has one, even if the world doesn't see it yet.